Good morning to you. It's afternoon here, Mr. Jordan, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, and how are you today, sir?
I'm wonderful. It's a wonderful day.
Now, before we get started and dive right into the interview, perhaps you could tell the listeners a bit about you.
Well, my name is Venson Jordan. I live in Washington, D.C. That's the place I reside. I'm not there at the moment, but that's my home. I'm an avid diver. There are lots of things that I do. I'm at this stage in my middle 50s, so I had a pretty sordid career with several things I was able to accomplish. And now that my children are all adults, I became a writer. This is my 5th book. I've also written the Centripetal Nature of Truth. I've written a book called Let Meditation Be Your Medicine, and one is Thelonious the Monk. I also had a book of poetry called Metamorphic. And this book, this one that we're talking about, is my 2nd novel, and it's called The Rebel Marcus Madison.
Okay, thanks. That's the one we're going to dive into. Now, the book itself, it essentially tells the story of a young African-American man, Marcus Madison, whose his world is transformed by the slaughter of his parents in their family car on their way home from celebrating their wedding anniversary. And they'd been stopped by law enforcement officers who murdered them and left Marcus with life-changing injuries. And in a while I'll read a little bit from the book, but that's essentially what the story wrapped around. It's the killing of black men, really. This is the contemporary manifestation of something which is very old, goes back a long time, wouldn't you say?
I would say it's gone back since the beginning of our struggle in this country. Since we've come to America, it has been the case. It's interesting how people will speak about it here in America. They say talking about this issue is dividing America. I don't know if you've been following some of the news that's been happening here, but there's a lot of conversation about the division of the country, and that's a very interesting statement to be made from the perspective of an African American, because we say, when has the country ever been together? In order to divide something, you would have to have one time had it in whole. It would have to at some point been together. And that has never been our case. So in and of itself, in the discussion lies the problem. You're not including me yet again in the discussion. So this is an issue that has been happening in America since we've been here. And that's one of the things that one of our characters, I won't give it away, speaks about in the book.
So what inspired you to write this book at this time then?
Interesting. This book almost wrote itself. It is something that has always been with me, because it happens to me. And it happens to people like me on a regular basis. I thought to sit down and start putting it together about a year and a half ago, but I was in the process of writing another book. An interesting thing happened, Hillary, because I could barely get through the book before the characters in this one started to come through. So once I finished the other, I immediately started looking at the notes that I was making for this one. That's how I started with this book. And it was so timely because the things were really coming to national prominence again in this country. So the material that I would need was right there. It's always been there.
Now, the story in the book is presented as fiction. So it's presented as
Yes.
fictions, but there are real live issues. So people have to think about it when they read the book, mull over it. It's thought-provoking stuff. Was it your intention to stir people to action, to bring about change?
To provoke thought, to really raise awareness, to tell the truth. That's one of the things that now in our country we seem to be having a bit of a problem with. But for us, again, it's not new. It's always been the case. But what we have is a president that you might be familiar with who really loves to play with that concept of truth. And this book tries to keep us on track with what has really happened and what is really happening to people, not just in America, but around the globe. This is an issue for all people, black and brown people around the world. So yes, it is a poignant issue that we wanted to get into, and it started to rise at least in the public eye most recently because for some reason America has decided to really pay more attention to these kind of matters as it relates to police in particular. And I think with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and some other organization, I mean, they have been able to gain attention on social media. So this issue is before us again.
I want to dip into the book and read a little bit of it so that listeners can get a bit of an insight into what the Rebel is about, more than I've said so far, without giving much away. This is from the barbershop scene. Let's call it that. And here goes. This was a highly charged evening because the day before, another unarmed black man was killed by the police. To bypass the government censorship, a few tech-minded regulars rigged the TV to receive relay-streamed international programming from the internet. Customers waiting in the barbershop could regularly enjoy news as it happened. The latest officer-induced killing was live-streamed a day before by a witness from her window. The graphic images clearly showed the man running away and the police shooting him in the back. While he lay dying, the officer yelled, "Put your hands where I can see them." The man didn't move. Then one officer screamed, "Stop resisting," and shot him again. As the video played, the room was without a sound for 2 of the longest minutes in history. There were a few tears, but for the most part, faces in the room were angry and somber. As the man lay on the ground, one of the officers slammed his knee down into the back of the still motionless man. The officer holstered his gun and handcuffed what appeared to be a dead man. The second officer reached over the first one and dropped an object near the body of the handcuffed victim. It was a graphic example of urban policing in America. Marcus scanned the room to see the reaction to the next news report. He was the only one in the room who knew what was coming. It was still, the hour was late, and angry customers were locked in the same set of emotions, but no one could find the words to express them. A small boy broke the silence. "They did it again," he said. As the boy spoke, the broadcast media screen was showing something different. Another reporter was talking. "Turn that one up," a customer shouted. The reporter was speaking quickly in an animated tone. She seemed baffled. "The police are now seeking the whereabouts of 2 officers involved with the shooting of an unarmed black man early yesterday morning," she said. "The 2 officers were questioned yesterday and were scheduled to be questioned today, but neither of the officers showed up for their interviews. The lawyers of the 2 said their families were concerned and the FBI is now involved." The screen flipped to a different talking face. "No," barked an obviously irritated agent. "We do not believe the officers are avoiding their interviews. We believe foul play is involved and we're treating this as an abduction," the FBI woman said. "Anyone with knowledge helpful to this situation, please contact the FBI." The report ended. "Yes," someone shouted, and the room erupted in applause, high fives and hugs. It was like the O.J. verdict all over again. Men in their chairs covered with barbershop blankets pumped their fists because they couldn't stand. It was that kind of moment. In all of American history, black people have rarely been so unified on any issue as this. But it wasn't revenge that ignited the crowded room. It was justice. The people in the room could feel it, and the idea that there was finally someone out there who heard the cry of the undeserved communities was enough to rock the American airwaves with a sound of joy and blackness. And I'll end it there.
Wonderful. Yes, it's a real story. I call it real fiction or true fiction. And that's because I take the stories that are happening to us, and the characters may be fictional, but the stories are very real and reoccurring, by the way. You will remember, I'm sure, 2017, the situation of Judah Dunby, the gentleman there.
Judah Dunby, yes.
And we remember that story. We just call him Judah over here. But when you see that story, he was tased by officers, but it was not just the tasing that was the biggest problem, although that was horrendous. Look at how they treated him, how they talked to him, how they assumed that he was doing something that he ought not been. And once he was angered and he was agitated, then it was okay for them to do whatever they needed to do. Now, you take that situation and you lay on top of it a police force that has a right to exercise deadly force if they are in the same situation that those police officers were in. Then you have a dead man. In America, a police officer only needs to feel as if their life is threatened. Imagine that. Feel. So my defense is that I felt that my life was in danger. And so I didn't intend to kill him. So I put several rounds in his chest. I was just trying to stop him. Whether he died or not was an act of God. That's the position you get. And it's exonerated officers all over America over and over again for years. Now, that doesn't mean all police officers are bad. I know it's trite to really say that, right? But it's true. In my personal experience as a kid growing up in Washington, D.C., most of the youth programs were staffed by police officers. Most of these people were people we knew in our communities. They're wonderful people, wonderful people. So most police officers, the ones who are community-oriented, you don't have this problem. So most of them are good people. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're dealing with now. There's a new acceptance of police behavior in America that is reminiscent of the kind of things we thought we had gotten away from. It's racial. And I said in the book, and I believe in real life, America, people here, particularly white Americans, are afraid of black and brown people. And the police are a force that really protects their interests. So when the police do something wrong, when the police kills, what you tend to hear from the American establishment is, well, it's a horrible situation. Hopefully it's an isolated incident. Police do more good than anything. We'll find the culprit. There are bad police officers. We'll find what happened, and we will root them out of the force. And this book illustrates a deeper point. What if the force was built on the thing you're trying to root out? What if? And that's the question that's one of the questions that this book tries to provoke. The other is something a little bit different. It goes to the community. Why is it that the African American community and the Latino community are put in a position of passivity all the time? Why is that? When is it acceptable for people to punch back? When is that? When does that happen? If a person assaults you, when are you ever able to resist violently, physically? We can accept a nonviolent approach to everything all the time. How many more marches are people expected to have before their shoe soles are so thin that they can't use them anymore? How many? How many conversations? That's where the book takes us.
Yeah. On that point about punchback, right, this is where the book introduces something different, okay? In the way Marcus and the people around him are responding to what happened, not only to his family, but from there on with this situation. And it brings us to the point about, is this then about justice? Or is it vigilante? What is it about in the approach that the rebel takes to respond to this situation?
Both things are true. He is a vigilante. The definition of a vigilante he fits into quite handsomely, thank you very much, and unashamedly. And one of the characters in the book is quick to remind you, Batman is a vigilante. All your comic book heroes, most of them are vigilantes. In America, we celebrate the vigilante as long as the vigilante is doing what we perceive as the good thing, going after the criminals. And getting the criminals outside of the confines of the law. But what if the criminals represent the law? This is what the book also tries to illustrate. So, justice, yes, it is about justice. We say two things. It is about justice, and it's about the position that they put just us in. So, justice and just us, yes. It is about both.
Now, the book has been out since May this year, and you've been going around doing book signings and presentation. You've done several in the US. You've been to Israel, Uganda, Kenya, I believe, as well.
Yes, Kenya.
Yeah. And
there's an interesting place over here in the United States I'm in, and I'll be going to tomorrow. It's called Bristol. Bristol, Rhode Island.
Yes. There are lots of places. There are lots of places in the US with names from the UK. Okay, remember how it all
Yes,
got started. So my question really in regards to these book signings are, what issues have audiences been raising as they've read the book and you've been talking about it?
Many of the things that we've just spoken about come up. Typically, depending on which audience, you will get, I will hear that this is, what kind of person is he? Are you trying to incite a revolution? Are you trying to raise people's awareness, or are you saying they should pick up the gun and fight back? And I'm quick to remind the public that this is it's a book. It's designed to provoke thought. It's designed to raise awareness. And I am the vehicle from which these characters have come. Because of the situations that have been happening in and around America, I wrote this story. It's a story. And so the characters have different points of view. The idea is to listen to the characters, hear what they're saying, and if we can, as a country, let's have a real discussion about this issue. Because all of the things that happen in this book are possible. We don't have to go down the road of revolution. We can actually have a serious discussion. But there are so many things that you can do to a people before, at some point, history shows they are going to rise up and they are going to fight. You can kick a dog all the time for a very long time, but at some point, even a dog will bite back. This is a point that's made in the book.
Okay. Do you get different reactions from black people to the reactions to the book that you get from white folks?
Sometimes. You would think that the answer would be most of the times, but no, sometimes. Often, depending on the audience here in America, the African American community, particularly the more affluent African American community, are really afraid of losing the bits and pieces of success that they have managed to muster. And therefore, you tend to get a very cautious conversation publicly. Privately, it may be different. But publicly, you get a very cautious, what will happen? What if we get into, you don't want to incite, this book is a great book, Venson, but we don't want to incite people to start fighting the police, because then you have anarchy, and then you don't have rule of law. And I don't disagree with them. I just asked another question. Have we ever had rule of law for black and brown people in the country? When has that happened? Well, for the most part, you'll hear, for the most part, it's gotten better. Yes. Better for whom? For who? You, okay. But for most African Americans and Latino people in this country, how much has this changed? The situation with Emmett Till didn't happen. As the story goes, it wasn't police officers that dragged him out of his uncle's house. But the circumstance was very similar. How do you come in and you grab a person away from his loved ones, and all the people around him just kind of stand by and let that happen? And so that kind of question comes up a lot in discussion. In some of the less affluent African American communities, you will hear people having questions like that. Why are we standing around all the time and watching the police do this? And that's a real question, because one of the incidences that happened here, you had a police officer literally choke a man to death in broad daylight. And you had black and white and brown people all around this incident with video cameras blazing, and they were discussing it and they were talking about it and they were complaining, but not one of them, not one person jumped in to do anything. That, my friend, is terrorism. When you are so terrified of the people who are supposed to protect you that you do not jump in and stop that person who works for you from doing something wrong, you are terrorized. And that kind of psychological vestige that's left over from slavery, Jim Crow, I don't know, a psychologist or a psychiatrist could take you through it thoroughly. But you have more than 100 people surrounding them. And a few, two at the time, and then later it grew, but a few police officers brandishing their weapons, and no one is afraid to risk anything. And we call this community.
I want to go back to the question, which was the reactions from audiences, black and white. You started out talking about the reactions from African Americans. Could we go to what reactions you get from white audiences?
Depending on the community, I get, this is a wonderful book. I find it very curious, the circumstances that we're talking about. I knew about some of the things that happened. They're bad, they're heinous, but I didn't know a lot of the stuff was going on. And this book has educated me. Thank you very much. You get that response. Others are on the other side of that fence. Oh, these things are happening. You're trying to sell books. And so this is fiction. So I see that you're trying to sell books. These things don't happen like that. Some people will argue that why are you airing out dirty laundry out in the public right now? We can fix these things in-house. A large population of people who have really taken this book to heart and have run with it are white females, usually college age to about 30-ish or so. That's a population that has really accepted, and this book is really popular in that population at this point.
Has it surprised you?
It did. And maybe that says a little bit about my own racial expectations, but it did. It surprised me in a very positive way, because I was thinking, wow, interesting. Maybe I need to examine this a little bit more.
Okay. Which brings me to the question of what we've talked about so far sounds quite heavy, right? And yet the book is not heavy and difficult and a hard read. It's the opposite. It's a really good read with some very interesting and funny twists and turns and, so on. Can you say some more about some of that lighter side of things and some of the characters, like Master Kondo, for example?
Master Kondo is, I guess, for lack of a better word, a mentor of Marcus's. He comes about at a time in his life where the things are fresh to him. These tragedies are fresh in Marcus's memory. And Master Kondo had similar circumstances happen to him when he was in Japan. He's very old, he's over 90, and he participated in the World War II. So he remembers a lot of the tragic circumstances that happened to his friends, and to him personally, he lost his parents. And this kind of psychic trauma that Marcus is going through, he identifies with it. He lost his parents. To lose your parents at a young age is traumatic for anyone. And Master Kondo comes along at that time in Marcus's life where he's able to connect with him. And that's important, because very few people are, except for Tatiana, who is Marcus's companion, and lifelong. Well, I won't give away any more of the book about that, but he comes along at that time in his life, and Master Kondo is the one who brings Marcus into a sense of understanding how to balance himself. He's a practitioner of ninjutsu, but he takes the art of ninjutsu and he has grown it into this other form of life that he considers. He calls it flow, and he brings that into Marcus's awareness, and it changes things. It makes all the difference in his life. So he's able to practice this sense of balance in his thinking and his emotional instability at times. So Master Kondo is a wonderful force in his life. Then we have Tatiana, who is his love interest, his wife later, and they have a child. And she brings something into his life that's very important. She brings stability. She's funny. She's extremely intelligent. And she's Russian. And that brings into play another dynamic because he's never met any black people from Russia before. So, again, without giving away too much of the book, that's another interesting character. And finally, I want to mention, there is a character in this book that is both controversial and very funny. And his name is Sherlock. Sherlock is a very controversial character in this book because some people don't believe he should be in there in the first place. But I'll leave it there. It's interesting.
Yes, you'll have to buy the book and find out why Sherlock stands out.
You have to buy the book.
And speaking of buying the book, I know it's available on Amazon. But more than that, I'm wondering, when will you be in the UK to promote the book and, just go around and talk about it?
I will be in the UK. We're still in discussions about that, but I believe I'm scheduled to be in the UK before the end of 2018. So in a few months, I'll be making the rounds in the UK, I presume.
Okay, so that's being worked on, yes?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I'm excited about it.
We look forward to that. But before we wind up, right, I must ask you, is there going to be a sequel to The Rebel?
Is there going to be a sequel? A very interesting question that I get at on most of our book signings, and my answer is very stable. There may be. There may be a sequel.
Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. But I heard rumors that there might even be a film made of The Rebel.
That is going to happen. I have been in conversation with a few of the filmmakers in America. There's one very popular one. I don't know if I should even mention the name right now, but we've been in discussion with him and his people about making a movie. There's a local artist whose name I can mention. His name is Mitch Cradle. He's a local filmmaker out of Washington, D.C. He used to be a homicide detective, and he desperately wants to make the book into a movie. And I'm partial towards Mitch Cradle because we're friends. We kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, and he became this very popular filmmaker. And he told me that, I know the people in Hollywood and I know the people in New York are great and everything, but you should consider me as a maker and making your book. And he loves it. So we're in discussion. There will be a movie. And there's already a trailer, by the way. You can go on YouTube and you can search for the trailer. It's called The Rebel Marcus Madison, and it should come up. And you should get a sneak preview of what's going on with this character.
Okay. So not only can you get it to buy on Amazon, you mentioned some other places as well while we were talking earlier. Borders, did you say?
Yes. You can find it on Borders. You can find it. There are a few other places in Europe, actually. It's been translated a few times. So there are a few Swedish sites that you can find it on. And there's one site in Denmark, I believe. I just can't remember the name of the sites, but search engines like Google and places like that, it comes up. I know you can find it at Borders. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Alibaba and places like that.
Oh, because, Christmas is not that far off, and this would make a great present. So, very useful to know where you can get it from. And I believe that it is about the £10 mark, the price for the book. So, it's not going to break the bank. Thank you.
No, it's affordable.
It's affordable, yes, yes. I want to thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, your morning time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you when you come to the UK before the year ends.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm looking forward to coming to the UK.
Thank you.
And speaking with whomever is in front of me about the Rebel Marcus Madison. Thank you.